Before we start, if you're enjoying this podcast and you can see it adding value to you and the Australian screen industry, we have a small favour to ask.
Please subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. Tell your fellow cast and crew, and in return, we promise to work as hard as we can to make this podcast as valuable to you as possible. Welcome to We Interrupt This Broadcast. It's your monthly roundup of everything that's happening in the Australian screen industry. I'm Julie Eckersley.
And I'm Kirsty Stark. And between us, we've been involved in hundreds of hours of screen stories, myself as a crew member and producer.
And me as a commissioner, producer and actress. We're here to bring the industry together, spark a conversation and keep you up to date.
So make sure to subscribe and follow us at We Interrupt Podcast on Instagram to join our weekly conversation.
Let's get into it.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Kirsty.
Let's get everyone up to date on what's happening in the Australian screen industry this month.
Should we talk about the deep dives? Because we've been dropping weekly episodes for the last month. Don't know how we've done it, but we have.
I know. We went on this crazy journey of let's release an interview every week. And I think it's been a little bit more challenging from a behind-the-scenes perspective than we thought. But I am loving the interviews. You have had some incredible guests that you've been speaking to.
I've been loving the interviews too. I feel like I've learnt so much from talking to these different people. I loved hearing Georgia Mappin talk about their really innovative business model at Haven't You Done Well, and particularly how they're using YouTube. Natalie Lynch we've had, who's talking about building audiences in the digital age. And then how great is Jasmine Yang from Glitch Productions? I was blown away by how impressive they are and what they're doing. 400 million views on their latest show. Can you believe that?
They're incredible. I am also getting so much from the interviews. I'm taking little bits and pieces and applying them to my own work in the background. If you haven't had a chance to listen yet, jump back and get to know some of these new business models that incredible Australian creators are testing in real life in the market.
And they're working. They're making sustainable businesses using new media. I've never felt so excited about our industry when I look at what people who are innovating in different ways are doing. I feel really optimistic.
Me too. Let's do it, Australia.
All right. So let's talk about what's been happening in the industry this month.
Well, I think the big unexpected issue is we have a federal election coming up and suddenly content quotas are back on the table.
Yeah, this was a surprise. Obviously, this has been an ongoing issue for the industry. I think we've been talking about this for something like 10 years, but it didn't seem like it was on the agenda until after Liberation Day from Donald Trump. Albo came out, and I'm going to read the quote that he said because it was a real game changer. He said, "We strongly support local content in streaming services so Australian stories can stay on Australian screens." Now, that was April 3rd, and it's been a real call to action for the industry to go, now is our moment. This is a time to make a real difference for the future of us, for our jobs and for our industry.
We really need to get behind this. And for that reason, we are going to do a bonus episode dropping tomorrow. We're bringing a special guest along and we're going to do a deep dive into streaming quotas. So if you've never quite understood what they are, why they're important, and what it means to you, tune into that one.
This issue will have a direct impact, not only on your jobs and your future, but also on our country, because we are an industry that contributes to the social cohesion of the country that we live in. And seeing our stories and our voices on our screens is really important to that future. So we really urge you to take some time, listen to this episode, and get involved in this conversation. Another interesting thing that happened this month is the Screen Australia industry survey results were released. Now, this is a survey that was open to everyone that Screen Australia released a couple of months ago. It had some really interesting questions about what people were thinking and feeling about the industry, what the concerns are, and also what role they wanted Screen Australia to play in the future of our industry. Did you take a look at the survey, Kirsty?
Yeah, I filled it out and I don't remember a survey on that scale coming out from Screen Australia before. And I think that speaks to CEO Deirdre Brennan's love of data and wanting to know what the industry really thinks.
And there were really interesting takeaways. Deirdre came out publicly saying that the key word was hopeful, but right on the back of that were words like concerned, disappointed, frustrated, and optimistic. So a real mixed bag there in terms of taking the temperature on how people are feeling about where the industry is at.
How do you feel about those words, like hopeful and then concerned and disappointed and frustrated, but also optimistic? It's like we're on the precipice of a change in the industry.
I love those words, actually. I don't know about you, but I thought those words are a really great mix. I'm an optimist. I think there's really exciting opportunities at the moment and there's challenges, and it's not a done deal. We've got work to do.
What do you think the key factors are in Screen Australia's support of the industry? What role would you most like to see them take on?
This is a time for thought leadership. So I think helping us have the data, know what's going on, see the opportunities, see where the industry is changing, and give people the tools to do that. Some of the significant things that came out of that were financing, international distribution advances were a really key role that people feel that Screen Australia needs to help us with. There are big changes like AI that we need to know how to work with, whatever your sort of moral stance. Global distribution, because obviously our budgets at the level that they're at really rely on that global money. So how we navigate that. Also economic viability for the industry and strong audience connections, which I think we also all understand that there's a real imperative for us to take that next level in terms of engaging our audiences and making sure that even with the fragmenting audience numbers, our audiences for our shows continue to grow and how we do that.
So it's a pretty spot-on overview of some of the key issues we've been thinking about. I'll be really interested to see what Screen Australia does with this information and how it drives their policy moving forward.
I think there's a feeling that they really are listening, that they know this is an important moment and that they're standing by to work out how they can really support the industry moving into this changing time.
Series Mania has just wrapped up. I thought it would be good to just get a pulse on what's going on globally coming out of that big international marketplace. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, Series Mania happens at the end of March and it's a really significant international moment. A lot of people come from all around the world. It's held in France. I talked to people on the ground there and they were saying, again, there's a real sense that people are looking at what deals can be done. How can we do this? How can we navigate it? I think there was a sense of optimism at that conference where people are going, we see the issue, we see that we're not getting enough money out of America anymore and we need to change the deal structures. So what can we do? So that's really exciting. But also publicly, there was some interesting things that came out. Did you see the Ampere analysis that was announced?
Yeah, that was really interesting.
So they were talking about some significant changes in terms of the market, broadly a trend towards more cost-effective television. But also they felt that the correction in the downturn in budgets was stabilising.
A few years ago, it was that peak TV moment. Streamers were coming in, everyone was commissioning shows. It felt like this golden age was going to go on forever. We've seen probably a return to normal.
And so rather than seeing the skies falling, we're going, okay, we've been in a time of correction.
I look across the world and the crew forums online and there's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people out of work. There's been a shift of production out of LA especially, and not just to other states of the US, but to overseas. But then you look at the UK and they've had a downturn as well.
And SPA also just released a report from producers suggesting that they're seeing a significant slowdown in local production. So we'll also link to those findings so that you can delve into them if you're interested. In terms of the UK, the fabulous Mac, Marianne Carroll, for those who know and love her, sent me a podcast from the media show, and that was talking about the British television industry in crisis and really saying how US shows shooting in the country did really push the prices up. So yeah, there really is a sense that this is a global issue.
In Australia especially, that streaming quotas issue is going to have a big impact on what's being made here. The positive side for our crew at the moment is with the exchange rate, it's a great time for US productions to look at coming into the country.
That with our soft money obviously does make that appealing in terms of crew having work, which is good. Another thing that the Ampere analysis brought out was the changing genres. And look, any of us who've been in this industry for a while know that genres come and go. No one's making horror, then everyone's making horror. But interestingly, the things that they said is it's time for a pushback to comedy and also crime. Cozy crime is perennial, which I think if you look at the state of the world and the concerns that people have about some global elements happening, that idea that people want more comforting content is a no-brainer. And when we're looking at a downturn in budgets, again, let's be optimistic. There are really great opportunities there. I don't think we need to panic about that. We need to think, what is the opportunity here? How can we get creative? We know that development and great story is going to win. And if that means, we've got less locations, less big special effects at the moment in our storytelling, let's just focus on what really matters, which is telling great stories.
And taking that approach can have such huge success globally as well. I mean, I look at here in South Australia, we've had the Film Lab program, which is specifically designed for a low budget feature film model. The teams go in knowing there's limited funding available and they design their projects around that. And every single one of them in the recent round has gone on to premiere at an A-list international festival. So it works. You put the time into development, you think about what your restrictions and constraints are in terms of storytelling, and then you maximize them, you make the most of them.
Kirsty, do you know it's been 10 years since Netflix officially arrived in Australia? We all know it unofficially arrived through VPNs well before that, but 10 years.
Yeah, it's a milestone.
It was 2017 when Reed Hastings came out with that famous quote that Netflix's biggest competition was sleep. I think since that, so much has changed. It is no longer sleep, but also TikTok, YouTube, Tubi, Fast. This is the crowded landscape that we're in.
The market has shifted. There's so many new platforms to watch content on, and looking at those big tech companies and seeing where they see the future or where they see the trends heading, it's always great to keep an eye on because they're the spaces where we have the ability to be leaders in that space in terms of content creation.
What's changed in terms of our viewing habits over the last 10 years? When we're talking about these changing markets, looking at how Netflix, who is clearly a global leader, is adjusting their outputs. We've already reported that they were looking at Podcast Live, whether that's happening or not, we'll wait and see. But this last month, they came out and officially said that they're stepping up into gaming. We are going to see more of this immersive content. And so they're making a push on that.
That move into gaming is really interesting, that immersive storytelling and the ability to participate in the stories that you're watching or engaging with.
And there's so much happening technically in terms of advancements and what's going on in that space. We've got a deep dive coming up actually with Professor Amanda Lotz, who's from QUT and is doing really interesting research in terms of the changing from mass media to niche media, what that means and how producers can utilise that. Kirsty, what's happening in terms of opportunities and changes in the industry?
A few pieces of news this month. Chris Oliver-Taylor has joined the team at Totem Global. They're really pushing into that digital space and looking at how they can maximize audiences on YouTube, especially that long tail of production and how you can utilize existing content. So it's a really interesting space. I think it's a strategic move from Chris.
Totally strategic. And we also saw the lovely Matt Vitins go to Northern Pictures, which is a great hire. And then the most popular job in Australia, Netflix, a content manager to grow their content team. I think probably every single person applied for that job.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see who gets the role.
What's in production, Kirsty?
We're finally starting to see a bit of a pickup in local content, which I'm loving. There's still international projects coming into the country, especially up in Queensland. We have Runner with Owen Wilson. It hasn't officially been announced yet, but Caitlin Dever did say that she is here shooting the latest Godzilla vs. Kong movie. And the Thing feature film as well. Queensland's a bit of a hub of production at the moment. But we are starting to see a lot of local content coming out.
We've got Gnomes shooting in Victoria, and I know there's a big show crewing up in South Australia at the moment as well.
The Stan announcement of their original content coming out for this year was a big one as well. 14 original shows that they've announced, 3 dramas, 6 features and 5 documentaries, all local content. And you're starting to see them shooting. So Whale Shark Jack in Western Australia. Thing is one of the Stan productions. Really nice to see that pick up in local Australian IP-driven production.
And Screen Australia and Inside Film both have production guides on their website, so we will link to them in the show notes.
What are you watching this month, Julie?
Did you see the trailer for Bring Her Back, the new Philippou Brothers film? That is coming out on May 30. That's one to watch. I did get on the adolescence bandwagon. Oh my goodness. How they made that show is as amazing as the show itself. What were your thoughts?
It's just an incredible piece of filmmaking, both on a story level and on a technical level. The amount of thought and rehearsal and development that has gone into that show just really shows in the final output. I was so impressed.
The key thing is that the whole episode is essentially done in one take. Did you read about their schedule? What did you get from how they actually made that work? They were doing 2 takes a day. Is that right?
They would go through and do all of the rehearsal and the technical setup, but then they had 1 shoot week per episode. And the idea was that they would do one take in the morning, one take in the afternoon, and then at the end of the week, choose the best take from those 10, and that would be the show. You look at just some of the transitions of handheld into drone, back down into handheld on the other side, and just all of the logistics and planning, ADs in the crowd in school scenes acting as teachers to make sure that people were going in the right direction. There's an episode on Cinematographer. LT, an Australian camera operator, has this incredible podcast, and they interviewed the cinematographer about the behind the scenes of the show. So look out for that one.
Anyone who loves the craft of making this kind of work, you just want to watch it because it really is extraordinary.
I haven't been able to track down the budget figure, so if anyone has inside intel, please let us know. But I think even budgets aside, that is the kind of show that we could be making in Australia if we put that time into development.
What we do know is that they had 5 shoot days per episode. That's about half what we would have. So you've got to think that had an implication on the budget level.
I think they probably offset that with more rehearsal time and having their whole crew there for technical rehearsals. So it would be interesting to know how that played out in terms of an overall budget. But, just looking at high quality storytelling, it's so much about the characters, and it's something that caught worldwide attention because it's something that kids are going through. My son's only 4, and I was still looking at that going, okay, this is something I'm going to have to deal with in his lifetime.
Other big highlights, it was so exciting to see people turn out to the movies and seeing how well the Minecraft movie is doing. When you think people don't want to go to the cinema, my other favourite news from this month was that Colin from Accounts is renewed for season 3. So looking ahead, coming up, we've got Screen Forever, which is the big conference Spa runs.
What are you looking forward to at the conference, Julie?
It's a really great lineup. I think they've done such a great job at meeting the industry where they're at. They're talking about things like AI, about audience, about new business models. You and I will be there. We'll be on panels. What are you talking on, Kirsty?
I'm running an open forum session about how to future-proof your screen business by putting people first. So essentially looking at all of these different aspects of HR and wellness and looking after your crew and what we can do about it and how we can support each other as an industry. How about you?
I'm talking about indie TV. Is it a thing? Can we really make things at a lower budget, or is that unreasonable? So that'll be a great discussion. And then on the Thursday with the fabulous Michelle Melky, talking about creators and how they're a talent pool that we can tap into, what that means, how we can do it. So really excited about both of those topics.
She's doing some great work at Amplify, and she's one of your guests upcoming for a deep dive as well, isn't she?
Yes, she just talks about Gen Z in such an interesting way. So if you're really interested in that creator economy and how to work with creators, what opportunities there are there for our Australian screen stories to be amplified, that is a really great interview.
And our producer, Leonie, is doing a session on the value of the producer credit and some of the conversations that have been happening in that space internationally. And she's also running the annual Screen Vixens dinner, which takes place on the Wednesday night. So come along. There'll be a huge group of women producers and friends.
And we'd love to see you and chat to you. And again, we always love feedback. So please come up, say hello, and tell us what we can do better to bring this podcast to our industry.
Yeah, see you at Screen Forever. If not, see you next month. And don't forget our bonus episode on Streaming Quotas tomorrow. Now back to your regular programming.
We Interrupt This broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions. Always was, always will be.
This episode was brought to you by Screen Vixens, Expanding Media and Crew HQ. We Interrupt This broadcast is hosted by Julie Eckersley and Kirsty Stark and produced and edited by Leonie Marsh.